What's goody with you all today? My name is RayGVT, and today we're gonna take a look at the new and upcoming Yu-Gi-Oh set, Photon Hypernova, our first core main set of the year. Now, I've been so excited ever since the set was announced and revealed for a few reasons, but for one reason in specific. This set is it. This is the set. This is the set that's finally giving us Galaxy Eyes support, baby! Let's go! Finally! My prayers have been answered after so many years. Whenever the question is asked of what archetype would you choose to get more support, my answer has always first been Galaxy Eyes. Why? Because they're my favorite archetype in the whole game, as I've stated so many times before. On the surface, they're a pretty straightforward archetype of smaller warriors and dragons, and their big boss monsters are giant space dragons that look so cool, and I've always been a huge fan of their theme and aesthetic. Now, in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, the Galaxy Photon game plan is one of the strongest XC strategies, which focuses on summoning some of the strongest rank 8 XC's cards in the game. All of this is centered around Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, which is right next to Stardust Dragon and Access Code Talker as my favorite monsters of all time. Though the deck itself hasn't seen a lot of competitive play in its life, their extra deck XC's cards have been seen in some strong decks, and some of their main deck cards have been used as engines in other decks too. Going a little bit deeper into their game plan, Galaxy Eyes and Photon is a very weird and can be a sometimes frustrating archetype, because the biggest thing that I've always thought they've lacked is consistency. See, for those unfamiliar, the whole Galaxy Photon archetype and strategy is split into two groups, Galaxy and Photon. Now, usually this wouldn't be an issue in some other archetypes. So, what's the problem here? The problem is in the wording on the cards. Certain powerful monsters and spell cards need and mention very specific cards of either Galaxy or Photon. Why these two weren't just combined together is beyond me, because that's the primary thing that hurts the deck. And soon after, we would also get a third group to add to the family in the name of Cypher, which wasn't much of an issue at all, but combined with all of this, it makes it harder for the deck to keep consistency, because again, various key cards will mention a specific name in the group, either being Galaxy, Photon, or Cypher, and makes it really hard to search for exactly what you need sometimes if you want to play the archetype as a whole. Especially since there are some really good in-archetype cards like Tachyon Transmigration that are unsearchable because of how they're named. Tachyon is not technically a Galaxy or Photon card. Can you see what I'm getting at here? On top of this, the Galaxy Eyes deck can be extremely bricky at times, but that's a whole other rant. Now, even with all of this, there are still good reasons for me to label this as my favorite archetype in the whole game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Outside of just their aesthetic. For one, they have one of the coolest, best, and strongest collection of boss monsters and rank 8s in the game. Cards that have seen competitive play in other decks such as Photon Lord, Tachyon Dragon, and the now banned Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon. And as mentioned before, some of their other main deck archetype cards are great fits in other decks. The deck is also pretty easy to get going and ranking up into your large XC's dragons if you don't open with the bricks that we mentioned just earlier. Now, the reason I start off with all of this is to highlight the upcoming Photon Hypernova set, as it looks like they're actually trying to fix these issues. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the new support that we're getting for Galaxy Eyes and see what else the set has to offer. So up first is the main deck monsters. Galaxy Summoner is a level 4 light attribute spellcaster that reads, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one Photon or Galaxy monster in your graveyard, except Galaxy Summoner. Special summon it in defense position. You can target one other light monster you control that has a level. Its level becomes 4 until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of Galaxy Summoner once per turn. Straight off the bat, I love that this card mentions Galaxy or Photon because they're bridging the two now. Secondly, this card is great for beginning your XC's climbs, as it just lets you bring back any Galaxy or Photon card in your grave, as well as having a good level manipulation effect. This is an easy way to make cards such as Photon Blast Dragon, a card that offers great protection for your bigger boss monsters and then lets you bring back your Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. definitely off on the right foot here. Good stuff. Next is Photon Emperor. If this card is sent to the graveyard, except from the field, and you have another Photon or Galaxy monster on your field or in your grave, you can special summon this card in defense position. You can only use this effect of Photon Emperor once per turn. After you normal or special summon this card, you can normal summon one light monster during your main phase this turn, in addition to your normal summon or set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. So this card just says go right from the jump. Not only does he revive himself once per turn if you have another Photon or Galaxy monster on the field, which you likely will, but after doing so, he gets you a free summon too, with the exception that he has to be a light monster, which in this deck is no problem at all. I can see this card being ran at 1 or maybe even 2 in the deck, but I wouldn't go to 3 because then it becomes a little bit of a brick. But overall, this card's effect is super neat. Next up is Galaxy. They gave us a Galaxy type Karibo. I'm so happy, man. We finally have our own little guy. So this guy says, this card is always treated as a Galaxy card. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can discard this card, special summon one Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon from your hand or deck, then change the attack target to it. Then you can attach this card from your graveyard to one Xyz monster on the field as material. If a Photon and or Galaxy monster you control would be destroyed by battle by an opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. If a Photon and or Galaxy monster you control would be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. Goodness, I'm getting so hyped just reading this card. In standard Karibo fashion, this card can tribute itself in exchange for being able to bring out Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon for free from your hand or deck, and then change its attack target to a big 3k attack beast. Now, Photon Dragon already has a few ways to be summoned for free in the deck, but what makes this even sweeter is its following effect that lets you attach this card to an Xyz monster on the field already as material. Again, something that you're likely to have in the situation already, but if not, that's fine, as this card's final effect allows you to banish this card in your grave to stop your Photon or Galaxy monster from being destroyed. Small in size, but one of the biggest helpers in the deck. So that's gonna do it for the main deck cards. We only received 3, but I feel like what these 3 cards do in conjunction with all the other cards that we already have for the archetype is amazing. They do a lot of heavy lifting for this deck already, and they're bridging a lot of these cards together now to make for a more consistent deck, which is exactly what we want. Great job here. Now, up next, let's take a look at the new Xyz cards that we're getting with this set. As I mentioned earlier, Galaxy Eyes holds one of the strongest and greatest collection of boss monsters and rank 8s in the game, along with some smaller but really supportive rank 4 cards that help tie this all together to make for a really powerful strategy overall. So let's see what we got. Galaxy Photon Dragon is a rank 4 Xyz light attribute dragon type monster that requires 2 level 4 monsters to make. Its effect reads, all other light monsters you control gain 500 attack. You can only use each of the following effects of Galaxy Photon Dragon once per turn. You can detach one material from this card, take one Photon or Galaxy card from your deck, and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. If a light monster that has a level is special summoned to your field, except during the damage step, you can target one of them. Its level becomes 4 or 8 until the end of this turn. This card has a very simple but very powerful effect. It works as a new searcher for the deck, letting you add any Photon or Galaxy monster card from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the grave, all at the cost of 1 Xyz material. This can set up for some powerful plays, as you can just send your Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon to the grave, and with effects like the cards that we mentioned before already, it's then able to storm the field soon after, and you can get Xyz summoning. Its ability of level manipulation is also very good, as it just enables your power plays even further. A very useful and helpful card. The archetype needed something like this, something that allows you to search for a Galaxy or Photon monster and lets you set up for some pretty big plays. I love this. And then we have the all new boss monster and cover card of the set, Chaos number 62 Neo Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon. What a mouthful of a name, but man, it just sounds so cool. Fun fact, I always thought with how ridiculous some of the naming gets with the Galaxy monsters in particular, I always thought that we already had a Neo Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon, but it wasn't until about a year ago that I found out that this wasn't true. But it is now, and I couldn't be happier. So let's go over this card. Neo Prime Photon is a light attribute rank 8 dragon Xyz monster with 4k attack and 3k defense. This card reads, you can also Xyz summon this card by using number 62 Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon you control. Transfer its materials to this card. At the start of your battle phase, you can detach one material from this card. This card can make up to 3 attacks on monsters during this battle phase. If this card has Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon as material, it gains these effects. First, unaffected by your opponent's monster effects. Second, gains attack equal to the combined levels and ranks of all monsters attached to it as material times 100. This card is ridiculous. I thought the Galaxy Eyes monsters peaked at Prime Photon with how ridiculous the effect went on that card, but this one goes a level above that. So you can rank this up from Prime Photon, transferring all of its materials to this, and then at the start of the battle phase, you can swing 3 times by detaching one material from it. That effect is insane on its own, especially with how beefy this card already is. But to top it all off, if the original Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon is part of this card's materials, it becomes completely unaffected by your opponent's monster's effects and gains a huge amount of attack based on how many monsters attached to it as material. This is definitely a card you always want to be climbing into and building your rank up material as best as you can because the payoff is worth it. There is one weakness that's left open, however, and that's that though this card becomes unaffected by monsters while you have Photon Dragon attached, it can still get blown up by other spells and traps, so that's just one thing to watch out for. But besides that, this card is insanely cool and is a worthy boss of being added to the greatest collection of boss monsters in my eyes. Amazing. So that's it for all the new monsters that we're getting for the archetype. Again, I think they're all great additions and help tie some cards that can be seen as mid on their own into something very useful and nice. Now let's go over the spells and traps now because this is where the fun is. We have 3 in total, and up first is Galaxy 100, a continuous spell card that reads, when this card is activated, you can send 1 Photon or Galaxy card from your deck to the graveyard. If Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon is special summoned to your field, except during the damage step, you can look at your opponent's extra deck. Then you can apply one of these effects. You can only use the effect of Galaxy 100 once per turn. First, banish 1 monster from it. Second, special summon 1 number monster from it to your field. You can only activate 1 Galaxy 100 per turn. Galaxy Eyes are out here continuing to rob people of their monsters, and I'm here for it. This card allows you to set up your plays nicely by sending a Photon or Galaxy monster to the grave, which will most likely be Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon as your target. And then, if Photon Dragon gets special summoned to the field, which again is very easy, especially now with all the new cards that we have, you can peep your opponent's extra deck and then either banish a number monster from it to just remove upcoming and potential problems quickly, or just straight summon them to your field. What you do next is completely up to you. You can either use these monsters as material to fuel your own power, or just keep them as useful bodies on the field. On top of that, this card is once per turn. This card is perfect. This is exactly what we needed. Next, we have Numeron Creation, a normal spell that reads, this card is always treated as a Galaxy Eyes card. If 3 or more light dragon monsters with 3k or more original attack are on the field, special summon 1 dragon number Xyz monster from your extra deck, then attach this card on the field to it as material. You can only apply this effect of Numeron Creation once per turn. Now, the first condition of having 3 or more light dragon monsters with 3k or more attack sounds very specific at first, but when played within the Galaxy Eyes archetype, this is actually a lot easier to achieve than you think it is, and is at most times a very normal scenario to be in for Galaxy Eyes players. When this is achieved, you can special summon a dragon number Xyz monster from your extra deck, and then use this card to attach as material to that card. The good thing about this card is that it doesn't lock you into only summoning Galaxy Xyz monsters, but rather any dragon number Xyz. You could summon a Galaxy Xyz such as number 107 Tachyon Dragon, or even number 62 Prime Photon Dragon for your big boys. But remember that there are other really good options such as both number 46 Dragluon and number 97 Draglubion, which are both great targets for this. You also have one of your key Xyz cards that you can target in the form of number 38 Hope Harbinger Titanic Galaxy and number 90 Photon Lord. You have a lot of options here that are going to help you in driving the power of this deck even further with with just this one card. And lastly, we have our one new trap card in the form of Photon Deceleration, a normal trap card that reads, take one photon or galaxy continuous spell or trap from your deck and either add it to your hand or place it face up on your field. If this set card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect during their turn and you control Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon or an Xyz monster that has it as material, you can make it become the end phase. This card is pretty simple in allowing you to search for your Galaxy 100 from before and adding it to your hand or activating it on reveal. And I like the safeguard that it has where if it is destroyed by an opponent's card effect on their turn while you control Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon or an Xyz with it attached as material, it just becomes the end phase for your opponent, effectively slowing and shutting them down and passing it back to you to get it going. It can also be a nice bait card. So to round it all up, I think that every one of these new cards that we're getting for the archetype is great because it ties together all of the issues that I just mentioned above of the deck's consistency issues and bridges them well by addressing and specifically mentioning things like Galaxy or Photon in the card descriptions, because before it was just one or the other. Now we have cards that allow us to target either or in one card. I think the cards in this set are great for giving support to an archetype that's been strong but has also been held back by its own consistency and speed. Do I think that they'll make an impact on the meta? Not really. This is definitely a deck that you play to have fun if you just want to stomp out people in outer space, but it does have a lot of competitive capabilities, especially in the form of its extra deck monsters. And I say all of this as someone that's been a player and a huge fan of the archetype for years. It's not a heap, but what we are getting is very helpful. And help is one thing that this deck always needed to just help get it over that edge. Now, beyond all the Galaxy Eye support, Photon Hypernova is a set that's bringing some more support to some of the other strong strategies in the game currently, such as the branded Bistio, Scareclaw, Despia, and Plunder Patrol archetypes, as well as giving some support to some other archetypes such as Gishki, Evil Eye, Ice Jade, and Generators. It's actually giving support to a number of different archetypes, and I'm actually really keen to try and build some of these other decks because I've been looking at some of these other archetypes for a while. But I'm just really happy that we finally got support for my favorite archetype. I feel like a kid that's been waiting after school to get picked up by their parents with all the other kids that are waiting too, but I can finally go now because we're getting Galaxy support. The Galaxy shines even brighter now. There are some other really powerful cards to look out for, especially for both Bistio and Kashtira in the forms of Bistio Bardrake and Kashtira Arise Heart, the new big boss for Kashtira. Kashtira is receiving more of their archetype support from this set to make the strategy that much stronger, and it's really cool to see. Some other really powerful cards are also making their debut, such as Triple Tactics Tasking, which is an insanely useful card with no restriction. But what are some things that you guys are looking forward to in this set? Are you also as hyped for the Galaxy Eye stuff or some of the other archetype support that we're getting? There's just so many cool things coming with this set. I definitely plan on picking this set up day one, and hopefully this time I can do a proper unboxing. My last set of Darkwing Blast arrived so late that by the time that I received it, it was already like 3 to 4 weeks into the set and I missed my window completely. But this time, I won't let that happen. Anyways, let me know what you guys are most excited for in Photon Hypernova, and I'll see you guys in the duel arena.